I'm going to show you how to turn a regular map into a storybook map. Just waiting for cute little landform cartoons and characters and who knows what. I'm going to start out by grabbing the handcrafted polygon vectors of Project Linework. And my favorite one is this one by Dylan Moriarty. Next, instead of a bunch of single part polygons, I'm going to make them all one giant multi-part polygon, so that the water ripples I put in later don't overlap each other. And to do this, I'll just run the dissolve tool. I'll leave the dissolve fields part empty because I just want them all to melt together. And I make sure the create multi-part features option is checked. And the result treats all the continents and islands as one big polygon. Here we are with a more typical version of land and water. And for this trick, we aren't going to need an outline stroke like this, the typical stroke. So I'm going to go into the structure and just remove this. What we're going to use are multiple levels of a fill symbol layer that we're going to move. So I'll duplicate this one. I'm going to add an effect called offset and an effect called move. Offset will grow or shrink the polygon, and move will just move around wherever it renders. So this bottommost layer, I'll give it a sort of sandy, bluffy color. And the offset, I'm going to make it, let's do 2 points. And I always go accurate. It's a little slower, but more accurate when things start bumping into each other. And for the move effect, I'm going to give it an X, which is horizontal movement of nothing. And then Y, I'm going to give it a negative movement. I'll say 2. So you can already see, let me zoom in on our preview, that we've got this bluff that's a little bit bigger than the top of the land, and it's a little bit of a forced perspective here. And we'll hit apply. Already this is kind of interesting. Let's add a little bit of interest where the light would catch the edge of the grassy tops of these bluffs. So I'll go back to the structure. I'm going to duplicate my green grass regular land layer, and I'm going to give this just a move effect. And I'm going to give it a slightly lighter color of what it is now. So I'll go to hue, saturation, value, less saturation, more value. Okay, and then I'm going to just nudge it a little bit in the negative X direction, and 1 point in the Y direction is what I want. So it's rendering just on the top and the left side. And it gives us a little bit of dimensionality. We see a little light green edge here where the light hits the land. And the cool thing about this is it re-renders as I zoom. See, it rescales. Nice. And now I want to give a little bit of angled hatch texture to the sides of these bluffs. So I'll go into the structure, and I'm going to duplicate my bluff layer, and I'm going to make it, instead of a solid fill, I'm going to make it a hatched fill. And I'd like it pattern to be negative 25 degrees. No, that's not right. What, 65 degrees? Okay, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Let's just use this for illustration. See that? We hit apply. A little bit of interest there. Now it's too perfect, and so what I like to do is make the separation more, and then I'll just duplicate this layer and make this version something different so that it has a sort of randomization effect. And then I can change the color slightly too. Maybe this one I'll make it lighter. You can do anything you want. This is your world. And it's just a solid stroke. What if we wanted it to be a little bit speckly? So I'll go to this one, and I'm going to dig into the line symbol here, and I'm going to format it. Now I've dug one layer deeper in my symbology. This is the line that's used for this line hatch. And I'm going to give this an effect of dash. And I'll look here, and instead of a nice perfect dash, I'm just going to do some a jumble of numbers. It's on, off, kind of like putting the pen down and then picking the pen up in this series of numbers. So 2 points on, 3 points off, 1 point on, 4 points off, 3 points on, 2 points off, that sort of thing. And that sort of has a little bit of a speckly randomization effect. Currently, the coastal bluff layer is exactly the same geometry as the top of the bluff, the grassy layer, and I'd like to mix that up a little bit, make it a little bit more wavy and jaggy where it meets the water. So I'm going to use an effect on this lower bluff layer called wave. Add an effect, wave, and it does just what it says. I like to use the random version of wave, and then I'll increase this period kind of a lot so it's a little bit smoother. Let's see what we've got. It's subtle, but it's a bit more snaggly. And you can make this as wild and crazy as you like. Now I want to add a subtle water faded edge around my coasts that you'll typically see in many maps, especially animated maps, but even like production maps. It's just a really nice effect. And I'm going to do this by adding a stroke layer, and I'll drag it all the way to the bottom. And I'll go back here and we'll style it up. I'm going to make this a gradient stroke. And it's going to be really big, like, let's try 40 points. I'm just winging this currently. Let me zoom out on my preview. My outer color is going to be a transparent version of this. Properties, 100%. My inner color will be just the full strength version. We get kind of this nice little glow effect. I actually don't really like how it clashes with the actual sea color. So I'm going to open this, pick the eyedropper, choose it, and then just use a darkened version of my ocean. Hue saturation value is my favorite. Here, here. Okay. Apply. That's better. Now it's in the same hue family. And now I'd like to add a little bit of fluffy texture around the inside of our grassy layer. So I'll go and I'm going to add a stroke layer, and I'll leave it at the very top. And again, I'm going to give it a gradient stroke, and I'll make it pretty big, but not as big as the other one. Let's say 20 points, about half. And see how it renders right over the center of my shape? I only want it to render inside the grassy area, so I'm going to give it a negative offset of at least half of its thickness. And then for the colors, I'll give it something similar, but slightly deeper in tone. And then that'll fade to, we can get a little bit goofy here. Maybe like this. What happens if I make it this kind of cyanish color and I make it fully transparent? Interesting. No, I don't like how it clashes. So I'm going to make it a transparent version of the background color. Or just leave it the background color without transparency, because that doesn't matter. Hit apply. Okay. See how because it's a very thick stroke, it doesn't make its way into all the nooks and crannies. We can kind of use that aesthetically. So I'm going to give this a dash effect to break it up a little bit and make it just look like little clumps and clusters of vegetation around the edge. Watch this. So 12 on, 20 off, 9 on, 6 off, 18 on, 21 off. See how it looks kind of chunky? Now we've got a neat little perturbed, interrupted edge here. And I'm going to duplicate this. And add a little bit more information here. I'm going to make the line thinner, the stroke thinner. I'll do 10. So I'll change its offset to -5. And now I need to make this one fully transparent. Okay. And I'll make this one just a little bit darker. I'm just winging it here. A little bit yellower. Okay, and then I'll change the dash template to be a little bit more rare. So 6 on, 22 off, 5 on, 19 off, 3 on, 28 off. And that just adds a little bit more variability to our little interrupted, chunky, wooded vegetation edge. Let's pan around a little bit. So at this point, what our illustrative map really needs are a little bit of ripply water lines, rings of water radiating from the land. So I'll add another stroke feature and drag it all the way to the bottom. But not past our water glow, on top of the bottom. So not all the way to the bottom, on top of our water fade. I'll come back here and I'll make this white. And I've got to move it the same distance as my lowered bluff. So I need to come back here, give this a move effect. And I'm going to use offset to push it out from the land. Move and offset. I'll come back here and style it up. So the offset is going to, well, let's do move first. I don't want to move it in the horizontal direction, and I want to move it, I think it was 3 points we moved our land. Now I can offset it, and I'll use accurate, of course, so we don't get overlapping rings of water when they bump into each other in these island areas. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, see how we've grown out this little ring of water? Let's make it perturbed, a little rippled surface, by giving it a dashed effect. And this one will be mostly on and occasionally off in a pseudo-random pattern. So 12 on, 4 off, 9 on, 8 off, 9 on, 20 off. Now we've got this little sense of action and motion of waves around all of our coasts, which is fantastic. I'm going to do another one. So I'll come back here, I'll duplicate this, and then I'll style it such that its offset is even further, at least double and a little bit more. Let's do 16. And then I'm going to kind of reverse the frequency of this. Instead of a lot on and occasionally off, it'll be occasionally on and a lot of gaps. So 4 on, 22 off, 3 on, 16 off, 6 on, 19 off. So now it's less. I'm kind of interested in doing a counterpart to our sunlit upper left edge and give a little bit of a shadow right before the bluff underneath this ridge. Should we try that? I haven't done that before. Let's do this. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to duplicate my sunlit edge. I'll come here and I'm going to move it in the opposite direction. Right now it's left and up. So I'm going to make it one to the right and one down, so it renders right on the bottom edge, and I'm going to give it a darker green. So let me do an eyedropper for the darkest green we have there, and I'm going to make it even darker in the color properties. Okay, see that? And I want it to be a little bit more organic, so I'm going to give it a wave effect. And again, I like random with a longer period length. Isn't that fun? Yes. And I'm actually thinking that the land itself needs a little bit of that wave effect. Let's try it. I'm going to make it less, so just a wave height of 1 and a wave length, something pretty long, just to mix it up a little bit on the top edge here. There we go, Storybook Village map style. Now I'd certainly need to do a version of this with lakes, so I can get some Great Lakes back in here. Whew! Hurts me just to see that. And because we've used accurate for our offsets, and we're using a multi-part polygon, that's important. These little ripple effects don't overlap each other. They treat each other as a single coastline. And now I'm feeling crazy, so let's give this a papery texture. I'm gonna right click, add data, choose Living Atlas for my source, and I'm gonna search for paper. And the Living Atlas has a bunch of paper textures that you can overlay. Maybe crinkled paper? Let's try this. Drag it to the top. Oh my goodness, that's fun. A little strong, so I'm gonna blend it with a soft light blend mode. Now it's too weak. Let's try the bigger cousin of soft light, which is overlay. And I like this a lot. And you can play with the strength of this Storybook bluff effect by offsetting it as much or as little as you want. For example, let's go 4 points. I'm gonna double the height of my bluffs, and I have to do that for this bluff layer and our textured hatched fill layer. So offset the Y evenly. And we have an even stronger effect. You might find that if you go high enough, you have to move your coastal darkened shadow down as well, which is no problem. You can give that a move effect too. And that more accurately nudges that coastal effect into place. And you know what? In looking at this, I'd like to call out where the bluff meets the water a little bit more, make that a little bit more of a stronger illusion. So I'm gonna go into the structure, I'll duplicate my bluff layer, and for the lower bluff layer, I'm gonna change this color to be a dark version of my ocean color. Hue saturation value. Let's go down here. Okay, and now I just need to move it down a little further than my bluff, down one more point further than my bluff, and I'm gonna offset it, which means grow it out in all directions, one more point. So it's got a 3-point offset. And I like this, I want it to be even darker. Okay, and I'm gonna change the randomness to be a little higher. Let's make it a little bit longer wavelength. Let's try this. I really like that. A choppier coast, a little bit more wave action right at the edge, and it helps differentiate the sea from the bluff bursting up from it. Okay, let's double down on our coastal texture effect, and I'm gonna add some stippling, like storybook style stippling, pen and ink stippling. I'll go to the structure, I'm gonna add a symbol layer, and this is gonna be a marker layer, and I'm gonna give this a donut effect because I only want it around the edge. Do not miss the chance to use the donut effect. Okay, and I'm gonna make this donut effect well, accurate, and round is a more forgiving method. I'm gonna make it big, and the color I'll eyedrop here. I'll get a darker version of our green, and I'm gonna make it even darker. Let's do that. Okay, I like this. Size, let's do like 1.5. Really small, okay. And the marker placement, I'm just winging this. I haven't tried this before in this style. I've done a pen and ink style before. Let's do random, and the step we're gonna make very low so it's very frequent. I like this. Let's do more of a Y step and less of an X step so it looks kind of horizontal. Oh, cool. A little small though. 2 points. I like it. So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna duplicate this effect, and I'm gonna make the donut width much larger, let's say like 38 points. So it's gonna cover more area, but I'm gonna make it more sparse. And I'll make it bigger, like 12 and 18 spacing. And that is fantastic. You get this kind of tapering off of that effect, pen and ink effect. And now I've got a crazy idea. What if I do a version of this, but I give it an offset so it renders out into the water, and I make it white? Okay. Okay. So I will duplicate this one. I'm going to drag it underneath all of my land layers, which is Getting a little bit hard now because I've got 18 million layers here, symbol layers. Okay, I don't need the donut effect, but I do need an offset effect. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna make it white. I'm gonna make it white, and it's the offset is gonna be like big. Let's see where it starts showing up. Oh my gosh, do you see this? Do you see what's happening? Oh, it's glorious. Let's see what we've got. Yes! You've just heard the joy of discovery. I'm going to give it a move effect so it renders down along the bluffs. Oh my goodness, that is so great. I hadn't thought of this. Where is it? Where is it? This one. Move. So excited. Down 5 points. Yep. Sparkly. It's fantastic. Also, check this out. Because we're in an honest-to-goodness, real-live GIS, we can add real data to this, like Living Atlas, bathymetry light. Now we've got a storybook style with actual bathymetry. Because why not? Behold the storybook village world we have created. This is too fun not to try. Give it a shot. Slide a little glass slipper onto your maps and have some fun.